year thesis. What? Sorry, something is playing somewhere. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to shift it to one more question. And this one is one that I'm actually trying to provoke you into, into first telling me what you guys have used. Remember, everything is completely anonymous. So nobody has to, you know, do anything. Sorry, can you guys still hear me?
Uh,
Yes,
yes.
we can hear you.
Hi. Okay, sorry. I think my internet just dipped really quick. Um, what's the event code for the Woo Clap? Sorry about that. I'm just going to um, repost the link to that chat. So, what AI tools have you used? I always ask this question. It's always interesting. Sometimes I learn of really cool tools during this type of question. Grammarly, Mendeley, Gemini, and Grammarly. Quillbot. We'll talk about Quillbot then in a second. Our site is really good. Paraphrasing tool. SciSpace. Okay. I know Gamma as well. RefWorks. How many people do you use RefWorks here? Okay, Grammarly Copilot. That's Microsoft Copilot, right? Okay. I assume that's actually what is a scholar cry. There's scholar cree or something like that. Atlas. So it seems like there's one tool that most of you use, and that's Grammarly. Hence the question about Grammarly. Okay. Illicit. I'm going to give it like another 15 seconds, and then we can shift to another question. And then we can get going. Okay. Looks like the two main ones, ChatGPT and Grammarly. Research Rabbit. You see, collectively, you don't even need me. We've got all the main things here. So one or two that I would add. Awesome. So definitely Grammarly is the biggest one. I assume you all are at least using the Rhodes one because that is the complete one. If you haven't, I'll post a link to Grammarly for you to sign up if you have not signed up for the Rhodes one. Okay, I'm going to shift it for one more question. As you can see down here, there's really just two more questions. Let's go for one and we see how we go from there. Okay. Do you think AI creates reliable information? Or we can even say, do you think AI creates trustworthy information? Again, the nice thing is this is anonymous, right? All right, we've got one person. As you can see, you can also do a comment on that. However, it needs to be used with caution. More comments. Has to be verified if you know your subject, not always. Under no, not always. Interesting. Let's go check the I'm not sure. One always has to verify. It has moments of being correct, but you always need to validate the information it provides you. They lie, especially with law. AI makes up cases and references, things that don't exist. Always verify. Here's the perfect midway. It is a both a yes and a no. I have verified some info I got from AI and it was true. In the other questions, I could not confirm the validity. Woo! Nice. Always read it. Yeah. Those are prompts when asked question then. Cool. Okay, I'm going to give it 10 more counts and then we're going to move on. Okay. So we've got a 40% of us say yes, we can trust it, but we have to verify it. 20% of us says no, but we have to verify it. And then there's 40% of us that says, I am not sure, but you have to verify it. Interesting. Okay, now I'm going to ask you one more question and then I'll start doing the talking. Do you think AI can reliably do data analysis? I am not sure. Interesting. I think you can comment on this one as well if you have a comment. Sorry, I don't know why there's a countdown. I think I forgot to switch it off. Okay, interesting. Here we flip it around. Do you think AI can reliably do data analysis? Oh, now it's done. Okay, that makes it good. All right, so 30% of us says yes, 6% says no, and the rest say I'm not sure, 65. So if I'm venture a guess, those that are in the 65 category, you've never tried it, right? Um, that's number one. And you're just generally not sure. Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm just going to go back to the first one. For anybody who's joined us late, I've put up a question. What is the main question you would like answered today? So I'm going to leave it open and we'll come back to it in a bit. All right. Okay, so thank you. It's interesting. We know what everybody uses, and so on. Okay, so what I want to say is, and there's a reason why I asked those particular questions. And the first one is really ventured around placing where our thinking is. And if I would to, sorry, if I were to write a paper on this, I would say most of us fall into viewing AI as an assisted intelligence, where we are still humans in the loop, where we can use it, but we have to verify the information. And the moment we get to um, can it do data analysis? We're not sure. So I would still say we're in that assisted intelligence space. Now, I think it's useful to think of this AI as a form of assisted intelligence instead of something that can do the work for us. So at least I'm happy that most of us have a little bit of skepticism to what AI can do for us. Now, these are just the big questions that the moment somebody asks me, what and how should we use AI for postgraduate research or research in general? And I think the first question that you have to ask yourself is, do you think AI is reliable? And for the most part, we would say, yes, we think it's reliable. Um, but the reality is it's not always um, as reliable as we want. Why? A couple of us have already said, AI does hallucinate. So hallucinations, like somebody who commented about law, it lies, right? Um, so when AI does not know an answer or the answer doesn't exist in its database, it would try and convince you regardless, right? Remember, AI is not an intelligence, but it's a machine to simulate intelligence. So it's not something that you definitely can say this is intelligence, right? So do you think it's reliable is a very big question, and I think you really need to spend some time looking at what AIs do. I use the word playing, playing with an AI, because you need to test what it can do and what it can't do. And then, of course, verify it. The second question that you have to ask yourself is, does AI understand your context? All right. And I mean, here we can ask I think nearly any discipline or any space that we work in, our research that we do is quite particular. Either the space in which we conduct our research or the people that we work with in our research, and so on. So the question is, does AI understand our context? Well, no, it does not. And there's clear reasons for this, right? We can prompt it to really get as much information about context as we want. But ultimately, within these systems, there exists some form of bias, right? And the reason why we have this bias is that any social inequalities and power relations we have in the world is reproduced into software, right? So who makes most AIs? You know, is it created in South Africa? No. Is it created in Africa? Definitely not. Who are the guys that make it? Um, it's the guys who buy, the Washington Post and so on. So there's agendas behind this, but there's also bias in terms of having, you know, Western ideological influences. I mean, I didn't see anybody mention DeepSeek, but if anybody tried DeepSeek, DeepSeek is also quite useful, but it got a lot of bad press because it's China and they're spying on us. Um, you know, I would venture that the US is doing exactly the same. So it's all these massive geopolitical biases, gender, all of that gets reproduced. So does it understand our context? No, it doesn't. Does it understand your discipline? I think the best example I can think of is exactly what somebody put in their comment, is that no, it cannot. I mean, law is a brilliant example. And it's not just South African law, it's most legal fraternities across the globe battle, except the Americans, right? Even the Canadians they are not able to use it in exactly the same way. Why? There's a couple of reasons for this. A lot of case law is actually behind paywalls, so it's not part of these um, databases it's trained on. Also, judgments tend to be digitized, but again behind paywalls. So these information banks don't always appear. Does it mean it's going to be like that forever? Maybe not. But for the moment, we need to know that this thing sounds really great, but it does not mean it understands our discipline in any way, and definitely not in a nuanced way. I'm trying to find a picture, and I keep on forgetting to put it in. I'm actually going to paste it into the slide now. I think it's very true. The moment you look at anything from ChatGPT, you can tell me if you agree with this. Sorry, now I'm struggling to get it in. When tech fails you. There we go. All right. And this quote says, "It's amazing how ChatGPT knows everything about subjects I know nothing about. But it's wrong like 40% of the time about things that I'm an expert on. Not going to think about this any further, right?" So, I mean, even though this is a tweet or an X or whatever, I think there's a ring of truth to it. Doesn't know our context, doesn't know our discipline, and so on. There's another question, and I think a couple of people have asked it, can we use AI to do the writing for us or help us improve that? Is AI a better writer than you? It can be, but it's also debatable. And again, why would I say that? When we look at academic writing, if you look at a thesis, there's particular ways and means of writing a thesis that some LLMs like ChatGPT and Gemini might not be able to do to the same degree. Does it mean you shouldn't use it? I don't think so. I think you can use it. I think this is the part where it's really good. Most of us, I mean, use Grammarly that's on this call. That's where Grammarly shines in, right? So yeah, it's definitely one of the spaces that we need to look at how we can incorporate it. And I'll tell you in a bit why. The last question I think that you need to answer is, do you think AI can reliably do data analysis? And again, if we look at our WOOC lab, what we said on that within the people who completed it in the call, that's the same perception out there. If we go and look at the research, it shows us clearly that as much as AI can do a lot of things, it doesn't always do data analysis to the extent that we want. All right. It's the trust but verify problem, right? So I think before you start anything, or before you start using any tool, any conversation that you want to have, you need to have answers to these questions before you move forward. And I mean, these are the real limits that we have to also take into consideration. You guys have already mentioned hallucinations, accuracy, reliability. it's definitely issues that ChatGPT has, or any other Gen AI. Um, and again, if you want to use it for research, I think you need to ask yourself the question, how do I know whatever it's doing, you know, does not or safeguards my research from these errors? Okay. Um, for example, if I'm going to use Atlas TI as uh, sorry, as the software to do my qualitative data analysis, Atlas TI has a ChatGPT module within it, so you can actually use the AI. Does that mean you can rely on the AI? I don't think so. There's certain things it can do really well, like sentiment analysis, and stuff like that. But is the AI functional enough to say I can base all of my data analysis for my PhD on it? I really don't think so. Again, if you are going to venture into that space, do give it a try. And the same for anybody doing quantitative. Most people on this call, if they're going to do quantitative research, will probably end up using R or Stata, because that's the two options you really have at Rhodes. That means you have to code the stuff. But of course, there are AIs out there. But at least with that, there is a lot more explainability in most of the AIs, i.e., if they're going to say, I'm going to do a regression analysis, it tells you which variables and it shows you the mathematical formula on most of them. Okay. So always think about accuracy and reliability, because remember, anything you put out there is your name next to it. So you're taking it out there. Then, if we think about number two, there's an argument of people saying there's a lack of critical thinking or originality, or we don't, develop enough of our evaluative judgment. Um, and I mean, so a lot of the literature says that, these are the things that we have to do as postgrads. We need to think critically about our not just our research question, but how that feeds into our discipline and how that contributes to society. Um, and of course, I don't think ChatGPT does that. Or actually, when I say ChatGPT, I'm talking about Gen AI. Sorry, for some reason, got ChatGPT in my mind. So, um, there's a lack of criticality in the way those machines write. And again, it's because they don't understand the context. They don't understand disciplines. They actually don't understand anything because they're mathematical algorithms, right? Um, I would also say regionality. There's a belief that Gen AI would break down originality. Um, Again, if you're going to use something to generate a bunch of stuff, you're going to copy and paste it. Is it still your work? I think that's a very big question. It's maybe something, if we have time, we can chat about it. But I do think over reliance can reduce these. But if you are, smart and methodical, and you have a plan from the get-go, I don't think that that's the biggest problems that we have. Um, One thing that I do need to say, when we do engage with literature, remember it's not just about reading, and that's why I put in evaluative judgment. It's about evaluating the value of other people's research and how it's going to influence yours and how yours speaks back. And that's something that chat is not really able to do. Okay. Then there's definitely a lack of domain-specific knowledge, like law. There's even some issues with some of the LLMs, generative AIs that work around accounting. tax law, all of those things change quite constantly, and there is some element of interpretation. So that's something that these machines really struggle with. Excuse me. Sorry, I don't want to get stuck on this for too long. Obviously, number 4, again, using this, you need to have a plan for data analysis. I want to say using Gen AIs for data analysis is something you need to do with great caution. Number one, there's not just it might bugger up your analysis, but there's also security, privacy, and ethical concerns that you need to consider. If I do interviews and I paste that into ChatGPT, it does go into the training model. If I don't switch off, I do not want to train the model. And who knows, that could be chucked out somewhere else. And I mean, there's a whole host of different risks that you open yourself up to. Because remember, when we collect data, we do that under certain conditions that we promise our participants, right? And again, that ties into number 5 as well. There's a whole bunch of legalities. So always make sure before you use an AI, rather have a conversation with somebody. Now, that's the big red letter caution stuff. But what we're also seeing in the research, and this is around postgraduate students, this is around researchers in the field, is that where human supervision, i.e., you don't remove yourself from the research process, in combination with AI, there can be a real fantastic synergy where you can actually do research in a bit faster ways. But, and this is the however, if you just blindly accept what that thing kicks out, that has a definite influence on the quality of the scholarship, right? I.e., in our case, if we're writing a thesis with too much over-reliance on ChatGPT or Gen AIs, that is a higher risk that we might not be developing work that's going to do us justice. So yeah. Okay, so last little bit, and then we're going to go over to tools, right? So what do we do if we want to start using Gen AIs or Chat GPTs or Grammarly's or whatever? Now, sorry, sorry about that. So what do we have to do? And I say there's not really a ton of guidelines that's so well developed that I can say, go and do that. But I think there's these 8 things that you can do. All right. And everything starts with having a conversation with your supervisor. Now, I'm saying this not because you have to do it and see it as a requirement. I think see it as something that we're seeing in the literature. We've had it at Rhodes. There's conversations like these happening on all the different campuses in South Africa. I mean, we've had cases where masters and PhD students want to submit their thesis for examination, and supervisors do not want to sign it off because they do think there's some over reliance on AI. So I think this is really about building that trust relationship between you and your supervisor. And that really starts with firstly having a conversation. In that conversation, it's the first step is to try and understand what your supervisor thinks about generative artificial intelligence bots. And I always say we start with that for the simple reason that if we understand our supervisor's view, we know what the rest of the conversation is going to be like, right? Now, I'm not saying if your supervisor says you should never use it, that you should pull out your pencil and start writing on pen and paper, but maybe it's a reason they have that view, and trying to figure out why is half the battle. In most cases, you'll find out that maybe they've never tried these tools. Um, you know, maybe they've had a bad experience, but regardless, it's good to start off with understanding their perspective. Second one is having a conversation about the role of AI in your research, right? So is to try and establish what is the expectation, what are the things you want to use, um, and explain what you think the role of AI could be. Um, Thirdly, discuss what ethical use is. Okay, again, this is trying to determine how both you and your supervisor sees what is ethical use. And again, the idea behind this is to build that relationship, right? Unfortunately, AI has not done all of us justice. There is an erosion of trust relationships happening. And this is not on campus, but in the literature. But trying to build a trust relationship is that first step. Then discuss what and how and what you will be using. Be transparent and be specific, right? If you're going to use Grammarly, say you're going to use Grammarly. And in what ways you're going to use Grammarly. Again, putting down a plan allows not just for you to use it, but it also allows your supervisor to defend you if something else happens, right? If for argument's sake, I think everybody on the call knows Rhodes uses Turnitin as a similarity checker. It also has an AI similarity index. So if that is high and you've used Grammarly, that could be a potential explanation. And if your supervisor knows that, it can save a lot of heartache later on in your thesis process, right? So be transparent, be specific. If you're going to change something, have the conversation. And discuss also how AI is going to enhance your work, right? It's not going to replace you. One of the questions somebody asked in the Woo Club is, how do I ensure AI does not replace the me part of the research? And I think having this conversation will start making that apparent. Because remember, you are still the human oversight to whatever generative AI bot you use, right? Ultimately, the buck stops with you. So taking that responsibility and thinking critically about what you're going to use will inform that, right? 6, show an awareness and discuss the limitations of AI and how you will either verify the output or just show that you have the AI literacies to be able to deal with this in an intellectually responsible way, right? Number 7, show how you're going to use this in discipline-specific ways, i.e., when you write your thesis, you are not going to do a rap song with ChatGPT, but you will be writing your thesis, and ChatGPT will help you with, paragraph construction or whatever. And then most importantly, keep that communication going. Don't stop after that first conversation. If you see a tool somewhere and you want to try it, have the conversation. Rather let your supervisor know, build that trust relationship, and show them what you do. Sometimes showing somebody what you do is going to save everybody a lot of heartache, right? Guys, any questions? I'm just checking the chat. No questions. Have I spoken everybody to sleep? Not yet. There's still life. Okay, there's one no. There's one person who's awake. Thank heavens. You know. Yeah, hi, Peter.
We're alive.
Hey.
We're
Yeah, no,
alive.
okay, great.
Yeah.
Because with my luck, I'm talking to myself. That would be hilarious. So I have to check my WhatsApp now to make sure everybody is awake and I'm still online. Thank you, Joy. Okay. Um, all right. I'm just having a look at the chat because there is a question here. Um, Armando, oh, so I believe the use of Turnitin is also questionable in relation to its checks for plagiarism. Yes. So remember, Turnitin does not check for plagiarism, right? That is the biggest lie that the company has sold everybody, and many people believe that it does. Turnitin looks at similarities. Does not look for plagiarism. Um, it's just one indicator to see if we should be looking at anything else. Um, so, I mean, there's the there's always the big debate about what's the number. Um, I looked through the higher educate or higher degrees guide. I could not find a number, right? Because there isn't a number. And I always say, when somebody asks me for a number, I refer to the one case that I helped a PhD student in. Student came to me 2 weeks before they submitting for their examination, um, and nearly in tears. They have got 45% similarity. You know, the sky is falling. I'm going to not get my PhD. I've wasted 5 years. You know, life crashes in front of their eyes. We had a look, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with anything that they've put down. So yeah, as Blessing says here, plagiarism needs discipline experts. Yes, the only way you become that is by reading, right? Okay, cool. If there's no more questions, then we will soldier on. Yes, Joy, have you got a question?
Yes, I do. Good evening from here.
Yeah,
I just wanted to ask this question, and I want you to
sure.
tell me in all honesty, how do you use these AI tools and still be original about your ideas? I mean, in your research about your own ideas and about, you don't want to still, I don't want to use the word still, but how do you use this AI and still maintain your
Hmm.
originality? Because
Yes.
if you use I use AI, so when I look at something like, oh, there is AI here, I can pick. So that's what I've not been able to strike a balance. Please, can you assist me? Thank you.
Hmm. Okay. Awesome. All right. Let's just look. There's another question here. How can RU mitigate on the importance of the principles to ensure these technologies, such as AI and other similar, do not simply worsen biases, maybe even introduce new social norms? Um, Maybe if you can you grab the mic and maybe just maybe just expand on that question? Um, because I think it's a very good question. I'm not sure if you're able to speak now. Uh, more, I'm gonna butcher your surname, Mabalane Leroko. Blessings, I see you laughing. Oh, you're in the library. Okay, sorry. All right. I'm going to try and answer both of you at the same time. All right. So I mean, Joy, it's a very intricate balance between when in the literature they don't speak about originality necessarily, they talk about over reliance. Okay, so there's a fine line between using generative AIs and over relying on generative AIs. Um, and I think that line is going to be blurred going into the future. Um, for the simple reason that if we want to search for something, we open up Google or Safari or whatever, and it types into Google and we search whatever we want, right? And that's how our life has been mediated. Is that something we question? Some of us do, because life is mediated through those lenses. So it's a very deep, you know, question. But to come back to AI, AI has that same effect. The moment we start having those conversations, we are going to get information. I think it's about how we use that information. I mean, if you are stuck on a problem, you speak to a peer, a supervisor, a friend, or whatever, right? If they give you the solution in that space, do you not use that, or is this something that you ignore? Now, I'm not saying AI is a real person, but what I'm saying is it is something that you can sound your ideas to. But over reliance becomes more complex when we start using that output as our own. Um, I don't know if that answers your question, Joy, because it's a very big question that you're asking.
Well, I'll just navigate my way. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, but look, I mean, the 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 thing that you have to try and do is just figure out what is your work and what's the work of the AI, and how are you going to navigate those? Um, and it's difficult. It's different for everybody. Walter, and then Matsubani.
Hello, am I audible?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, I understand with American institutions have devised their own generative AI so that they can safeguard what AI can store.
Mm,
And I've yesterday the Dublin City University in the UK announced this AI policy for postgraduate students. And
okay.
it only allowed students to use Copilot and Gemini. And the reason why they stated that is because of data protection. So,
Yes.
with regards to Rhodes University, I know that we are in murky waters with regards to AI. Um, what do you think should be because when I tried to use all these different I found that they've of course they have variances in terms of subject matters,
Yeah.
but in terms of writing they almost write the same.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm asking this is which generative AI would you recommend in with someone who wants to protect a data set?
Okay. That's a very, very good question. Okay. Let me first, well, let's, Matubani, maybe you ask your question as well, and then I'll respond to both the questions. Is that fine?
Okay, I think it's fine with Walter. So I
Sure.
will ask my question. So you said the problem is when we take the AI output and present it as our own. So I wanted to ask if you simply reword whatever it is that the AI spits back, that would that count as your own? So, like for example, I have an idea about, I don't know, the sky is blue and sometimes the clouds can be orange, but then I don't know why the
Sure.
clouds are orange, and I put that on an AI thingy, a generative AI website or whatever the case is. And then it just tells me about light refractions and all of that. That's why the clouds are orange. But I didn't think about the sun playing a role. And if I bring that into my literature, does that still count as my own work?
Okay, good question. Jeez, you guys ask really damn good questions, right? Okay, let me answer these two, and then we there's another one in the chat. Okay, around data privacy. Now, that is one of the reasons why various institutions have opted to use Copilot if it's institutionally supported. There are a couple South African universities that have gone this route. By doing that institutional license, that automatically safeguards the data in terms of not feeding the training data. Um, at Rhodes, we don't have an AI service that we that we support institutionally at the moment. Um, there are various conversations going on about the need for this. Um, and I mean, data security is one that we definitely need to consider. If because look, I use AI in my own research as well. Um, now I do pay for ChatGPT. I do. Um, and with that, I'm able to prevent or limit them of taking that data. In the free versions, you can do that as well. Um, but I mean, I only use ChatGPT. I actually do not use many of the things that I'm going to show you today. But it doesn't mean they're not useful. At certain spaces in my research, I use different ones, but I use them for specific functions. So a literature review or finding literature, there are AIs that do that better. But when it comes to data, Walter, I think it's very important to have those conversations with your supervisor, so that we can raise these debates further up in the university, because we need everybody to actually, start these debates because they're really important. Um, but yeah, I mean, short answer, I use ChatGPT. Even if you use the free version, you can opt out of the training. Um, and yeah, for what it's worth, that's what we can do. Um, I mean, all of us, even institutions, they can say they don't take the data, but it doesn't mean they don't. Um, you know, it's the Ashley Madison problem. Okay. I hope that answered your questions. Uh, all right, I'm gonna go back to the chat. There's Okay, that makes a bit more sense. Worsens biases and even introduces new problems. Okay, let's start. Is there an international framework that guides the use of AI to conduct research? There are several. There's not just one. Um, there are a couple of them out there. Um, none of them are binding enough, except if your discipline has decided to you know follow one specific framework. but most of them are, there's one framework called COPE, and there's one that's called CARE. And it's all about the issues that's actually on the screen or on the screen in the previous slide. It's all informing us to think about these things critically. How is AI accountable? It isn't. There's zero accountability for the use of AI, except you. So if you use something, if you use an AI to write something and you publish it, then you're accountable for whatever is there. I also want to say AI cannot be a co-author on any research. In 2023, there were a couple of papers where that happened. They have been updated because AI cannot be an author, so it has no accountability. Ultimately, if you sign your name to it, you're going to be held accountable. So I hope that answers the question. And then on the researchers needing guidance, you're in one of the sessions that does exactly that. It's the first conversation where we need to try and have these conversations about the limits of AI, how we should be using it in our research. So there's definitely more conversations that's needed, even at departmental level, because certain disciplines would use AI in different ways. All right, guys, any other questions before we move along? You can type them in or, grab the mic. Okay. Let's maybe move, we're going to move past this. Because we got into a couple of good questions. I'm just checking because we've got about a half an hour left, right? I'm not going to chat about these. Let's maybe start off with this. And I mean, Joy, this is maybe where we're going to answer some of the questions that you have, right? As we go along. So what can we actually use AI for? I do think that AI is a very useful tool for us to think about our research with. This video here, I forget Lynette's surname. She did a video on, and it's a very early video on how to create a research question or how to develop research questions. But I think her method is really good. So, not just, I think a method is good. You don't have to use it just to develop research questions, but it's really good enough to actually have robust conversations with an AI about your research. Now, it gets into that sticky situation, Joy. If I have a conversation with a chat, does that mean I am now cheating? Let me show you an example, because I do believe in showing examples. Waiting for it to load. So, I mean, here I've got my chat GPT. I'm just going to share this one link with you guys. If you want to think about bias, ask that chat GPT a question when you have a gap. If I ask it a question, I'm going to ask it a very simple question. What's the capital of France? It's going to give us this fantastic answer. but it's going to do two things no matter what you ask it. It's going to tell you that it is a unicorn and that the sky is purple. And I think AI works in exactly the same way. If we can incorporate our own biases into AI, if we're not careful, the way we ask questions can be leading. And the algorithms do infer from that lead on what type of response you want. So it's something that you need to practice, and you have to practice it quite regularly. But let me show you what is my practice. Based on what Lynette has said in this video. So I've built my own, as I said, I do pay for this one, and I do build GPTs. Sorry. So I can build a GPT to be able to give me feedback on whatever. I've got one that is a writing, it's the language bot. No, it's not. So I've got one bot that helps me read. I'm just opening some of them. As you can see, I've got a ton of bots that I've built over time. Here's my main one is, should I read this? So what this one does, and I use it quite often, is if I open this up and I load a couple of PDFs. Sorry, it's got its full books. All right, if I do this, it now reads these books, gives me a brief little overview about what this is about. And it tells me, so this is one of my research questions, my main research question. So it tells me how this relates to my research question. Now, I forced it to do it in as little text as possible. At one stage, I also had another column that would give it a 1 to a 5 score. Depending on how relevant it is, it would give me a 5 or a 1. And then I could then decide, what am I reading first? Okay. This is one way that I use it. Another way is my writing editor. It's not, where is my writing editor? Because I also sometimes delete these things by accident, because it's very easy to do that. I think it's one of these untitled ones. So no, it's not. So what this would do is I would write my, I think I know which one. That's it. So what I would do with this one is I've taught this specific chat my theory, the theory that I use in my research, and I upload my own writing here, and it gives me feedback on my writing based on the theory, but also how clear is my communication. What it also does is it gives me feedback to say, this is not clear, and where is it not clear? It also tells me how I could improve it, right? Now, if I go and I improve it, if I just use what it chucked out, is that cheating? What do you guys think? If you think that's unethical, put a thumbs down. If you think it's ethical, put a thumbs up.
No, Neil, where I'm
Yeah?
seated now, I just think, also learning these tools also takes a tremendous amount of time, you
Yes.
know. So as you say, it is a slippery slope, which even me as a researcher, I find it very difficult to balance to say, well, you having to train the model to be specific, you have to ask questions in a certain way. So I don't think that it's unethical, but then again, as long as you're going to supervise what you're getting out of here to verify it yourself, but which is exactly why I came to this course, to this meeting to kind of understand what exactly does that even mean, the ethical use. But
Yeah.
I don't think that it's unethical because also it takes a tremendous amount of effort to understand what these things can do, you know.
Yes, yes. Exactly. But look, when we talk about training, it sounds like this massive undertaking. But it is not really. I mean, here's a tutor bot that gives feedback. Um, that is the total prompt of it, right? It's not a massive thing. But let me also show you how you hack the system, right? Or not hack the system, how you create something that's useful to you, while you're still managing the intent. Because I think for me, the intent is also a very important thing. When I do get feedback from a chat like that, right? If I upload a paper and it gives me feedback, I do not take it as gospel. Number one, it's definitely not gospel. Anything it tells me, I take an oppositional approach to it. If it says the sky is blue, I need to make sure the sky is blue. If it tells me I understand the theory really well, it needs to tell me why it says that. Then you can ask it, why are you saying I do it well? Then it'll give you a couple of bullet points. And then you evaluate that. And then you can actually respond and say, well, no, you actually are completely wrong because the theory says this. So it's really like having a conversation with somebody. Now, I think it's the trick to this is to make that connection. All right. So let's say I want to create a chat that would, not any of this fancy GPT stuff. If I want to create something that I can use today, I want something to give me feedback on my writing. You can do something like this. Write a prompt to create a writing tutor for my master's thesis. Ooh. The title is AI and Assessment. What is the way forward? This prompt must give feedback on the content and give references to existing literature if it finds a mistake. All right. The tutor must be an experienced, because it's and this is where that bias and stuff comes in, right? When you say professor, you get average, but if you say an experienced tenured college professor uh, 'in' 'higher education studies', You know, that's going to give us a particular bot that's going to respond in a particular way. So now what we have here is we actually have the prompt. Instead of me figuring out what we need the bot to do or how do I get it there, I can now go and look at all of this content and say, okay, I agree with this. What I don't agree with, I change. It tells me everything. And here you can see how detailed it is. But also, I mean, if I don't like something here, let's say I want the tone to be direct. Okay. It's going to change that. Clear. Your task is to provide clear, direct, and research-informed feedback on a master's thesis entitled blah. Now, what you've got here is quite an extensive prompt. Now, to actually start that conversation with the bot, sorry, I'm waiting for it to finish. Let's say I've now read everything and I do accept everything as what I want. I start a new chat. This chat will use this prompt to respond to any engagement. Paste it there, and then you say, confirm if you understand what to do. So there, got it. I'm a critical, blah, blah, blah. You can now double check. You can ask it some things around this if you like to make sure it does that. Now, in this section, you're now going to just rename it and say, call this my writing tutor. Okay, there I've got my writing tutor. Now, anything I want to do, I can either, if I'm using the free version, at some point you can no longer upload a document, but nothing stops you from opening up a Word document. And let's just use, sorry, I'm just getting my Word quick. Ugh, wrong thing. So let's say this is my document. Nothing stops me from either uploading this document, but if you run out of engagement with ChatGPT 4.0 and it shifts you to, I think it's mini that it shifts you to now. Oh, yes, this is a brand new one. But yeah, then you can chuck it in here and you just hit enter. That would look, so I pasted a picture, sorry. There, I pasted it. Let's see. Oh, okay. But because that's something totally different, let's quickly see. Quickly look. Sorry, I'm looking for a paper quick. Something we created yesterday in another class. This is like a full-on paper that was written by an AI. Oh, my soul. So long. Okay, where's Word? I'm going to quickly do that. Well, let's just paste this into this writing tutor, right? There I've given it an entire journal article, essentially, right? And here it tells you exactly what we are doing. Now, just take note, it even gives you little icons on what is there and what's not there. Now, again, the way I'm using it is not to give me the best way, but it's going to give me a way to improve what is there. And again, I'm not saying if you use it to improve your grammar and stuff, that's fine. But just have a conversation with your supervisor about it. Explain the process so that you have that conversation. Okay. But I mean, guys, this is what it would do. I'm going to share this chat with you. I'll put it in the Zoom chat now. Oh, come on. I've broken ChatGPT. Okay, we'll come back to it, and then you can actually have a look at that prompt. But I mean, that's the way in which I think ChatGPT is useful, because you can ask questions in the moment when your supervisor is not close by. So yeah. There's too many questions. I enjoy conversation around this. Now that we have heard the AI can lie, or that it does lie, can we be confident of algorithms? Can AI be used to tweak algorithms? Yes, it can. It's constantly doing that at the moment. So in the paid version, as you can see, if you have a look here, I think in the free version you've got access to these 3 and 4.0, but I can now do 4.5. That's specifically around writing. There's deep research, there's Canvas, there's so much. But ultimately, it still requires a human to verify everything. Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever said that you can trust an algorithm fully. You know, if you ever get to drive a Tesla, that's when you sign up for the app, they actually tell you that if it crashes while on autopilot, you need to be awake to make sure it doesn't. So it's the same logic that would apply here. Colleagues, any other questions? Questions finally. Have our supervisors received training on ethical use of AI for research? There has been various conversations that has happened on campus. And yeah, the hope is that the answer is yes, completely. But there's always going to be somebody who couldn't make it. So I would rather, if I were you, have that conversation. And if you're really stuck, reach out to somebody that can help you with that conversation. We've done a couple of them. I know CPGS is definitely there to assist as well. So yeah. But yeah, maybe as CP, we must note that and do something more for the supervisors as well, even though we have done stuff for them. Maybe we need to do more and more and more. Guys, I'm worried about time, and we got stuck on other things, and I haven't gotten a gap to show you all the tools. But hopefully what you've seen so far has been somewhat useful and have answered some of the questions. I mean, if I look, what are the implications of asking AI to write something more properly, formally with an academic register? Because Grammarly can do that, and Grammarly does that to some extent. It does certain things better than others, and it can definitely improve. So I don't see something wrong with it, but again, have that conversation with your supervisor. Anna Maria, you can take the mic.
Yes, thank you. I was
Pleasure.
wondering about these AI detection apps, not apps, programs. How does it actually work to detect AI and to what percentage? Because I've never used one, but I've heard that there's like then showing percentages of how much AI was used to write that.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, there is a number of them at Rhodes, and I'm going to open up one so that you guys can see what it is. Because unfortunately, if you're a student, if you've got a student profile on a course page, you won't be able to see them. So you can't see that. It is something that we always try and rectify, but it is a Turnitin setting, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm going to open this one up and then I'm going to answer your question about reliability of these machines. So I think I submitted something here because I don't want to show somebody else's laundry. I'll just show my own laundry. Come on. Sorry, we're just waiting for it to load. Okay. So here is something I submitted. There's your similarity. If we open it up. Now, in Turnitin, what you guys will see, and I mean, I do think at some point we have to do a talk about Turnitin as well. If you guys open up Turnitin, you do not see this. So this is what you would normally see. If we go to the AI, which shows this is 100%, it would tell you that everything here is created by an AI. And to some extent, it's true. Nothing on this page was written by a human. But we didn't try and hide it, right? So yeah, so I mean, these things can be reliable, but in general, the research shows that they are less reliable than what they advertise. So
What is
yeah,
actually, sorry to interrupt, what is actually
no.
counted here? Is there like, does it like detect words that are used very
So
much frequently from
sure,
AI, or, and
sure,
what does
sure.
AI generated text that was AI paraphrased mean?
Yeah. Okay. So what happens is, and I'm going to try and briefly and simply explain what AI is. So if you ask AI to write something, it starts with the first word. It takes a random probability of what's the next word. All right. And this is based on all sentences ever written that's in the database that starts with the word in order. So it randomly generates the next word. Okay. That's what the algorithm does. And so that's how it writes. Now, what a detector like this does is it looks at one sentence. So it would look at this entire sentence and it would analyze what's the probability that each of the next words could be generated by a machine. Okay. It would then give this one sentence a coefficient between 0 and 1 and say at let's say 6.5 is the likelihood that this sentence is AI generated. It would do the same with all the other sentences individually for about 10 sentences, and then it would look at the entire 10 and then do the same thing. So that's how that works. Okay. The problem is you've got something that's generated at random, and you've got something that tries to say something is generated at random. There are others that try and look for what is called breadcrumbs, like you said, the patterns in the words. So maybe every 10th word is the word and, or something like that. So it looks at the syntax of sentence constructions and then says this is the probability. But either which way, both of these are way less reliable than what these services claim. So yeah, so when you are confronted with anything like this, it starts a conversation. That's what it does. It is not a punitive tool. It's not evidence by itself, right? Because there is reliability issues with the way it does identify um, AI detection, AI detected content. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm thinking, because if you read
Mm,
so many scientific texts, it's like that formal wording you use anyways. So
exactly.
how much do the professors rely on those apps? And I've heard that most of the professors don't really use it. I mean, you can
Yes.
tell when reading a text if it's AI generated or not, and how good it is proven.
Yes. I mean, that's also all debatable. I mean, even the research on human identification is also not great. We're talking about a 50-50 chance of actually getting that. There is a little game that you can play. It's called Real or Fake Text, and I'll quickly open it up and then you can try it. If anybody wants to try it, give it a go. If you score more than 40%, you're in the upper echelons of people being able to do that. I did that yesterday with a class of I think it's 20 or 25 academics, and nobody got more than 30%. So yes, I mean, these are the big debates, and that's why I say have the conversations with your supervisor, even iron out what if you guys are going to use this and if they're going to share this stuff with you, because I do think it's only fair to be able to get this. Um, I mean, and also, and Maria, it's if you use Grammarly in particular ways, that will also inflate this. Why? Because Grammarly is an AI-powered grammar checker. So if it changes to a particular way. I think Walter mentioned most of them write in exactly the same way. And it's not that they have the same ideas, it's more or less the same sentence structure. So yeah, I mean it is something we need to think about. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Very
Cool.
interesting.
All right, wonderful. Guys, I see it is 5 minutes over the time. Um, I'll quickly just look at the last questions, and then if you have one more pressing question, you're more than welcome to take the mic. And then we'll close off this session, right? Can you use AI to give you a structure of an article or a chapter by giving out the topic? Yes, you can. I think it's just about the intention of it again, right? If something gives you a structure, it doesn't mean that you have to stick to that structure. It's a starting point. You start off with, well, yes, this makes sense. And I mean, maybe it's going to have something wrong, or as you write, you'll see it does change. So I don't think there's a very clear or always a clear way to say this is allowed and that's not allowed. It's more around what is the intention. Okay. When do we move from A to learning to plagiarism? That's a very complex question. I think copying and pasting is problematic. But having conversations with AI and then, using that to shape your response is nothing wrong with that. I don't think so. All right, colleagues, thank you so much for joining us. I've taken enough of your time, and yes, I think my email is on the slides if you do have any questions or you just need somebody to talk to about these things. Pop us an email and we take it from there. Thank you so much. Feels like we only got halfway. I didn't even show you any tools.
Thanks, Neil. This was great. It gives a little bit of a perspective. I think you
Awesome.
need to make this in 2 parts next time.
Yes, it
Yeah.
seems like that is definitely true. And I pop my email there as well. We need a part 2. Awesome, pleasure.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Now I was waiting for the tools. I think as enhancers of this process, I was waiting for those. If you could share,
Right.
I
It's
think that would be great.
all on the slides. So all the tools are on the slides. So
Okay.
we got to slide number 18. These are tools that I've reviewed. I've themed them to, searching for the literature. There's a couple of really good ones to use. The only thing that you need to know is if you use a free tool, you get what you pay for, right? So try 1, try 2, and maybe consider and I mean have a conversation with your supervisor. Maybe they'll fund something and you guys share the account. It's happening across campus. So yeah, and there's obviously some limitations, but I mean, yeah, if you find one and you're stuck, pop us an email. We'll gladly help. Awesome. Great, colleagues. Thank you so much. A last thought, please use mindfully because every search is impactful. Yes, Anna Maria, you are so true. I didn't even speak about that. The last research that I found that I think is quite credible, doing one search on an AI uses 13 times more energy than using Google. So yeah, and I mean none of these actually even speak about the energy they do use. But the data centers are massive. Something that one of the data centers that's a main node for ChatGPT uses uses more water than what the entire Grahamstown does in a day. It uses in an hour just to cool the data centers. So yeah, it definitely does burn a lot of resources. So thank you for that last note. And somebody asked, I'll definitely share the PowerPoint via email again. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Let's have a lovely, lovely evening.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.